The scalpel slipped from my trembling fingers and clattered against the stainless steel tray, echoing like a gunshot in the sterile operating room. "Breathe deep, Alex," Dr. Elias Grant murmured, his voice cutting through the chaos as he steadied my hand with his own warm, "Sure." The first real touch I'd felt in months that didn't feel like pity. In that frozen instant, with the patient's vitals beeping erratically and the team frozen in shock, I realized his eyes weren't just assessing my panic. They were seeing me, all of me, for the very first time. I wasn't supposed to be there that night, not in the thick of it at Mount Sinai's ER in Manhattan, but the on-call gods had other plans. It was a Tuesday in late October, the kind of crisp fall evening where the leaves on the trees lining Madison Avenue turned the city into a postcard of amber and gold. I'd been grinding through my third year of residency, 28 years old and already feeling like I'd aged a decade from the endless shifts and the hollow ache of a life that felt scripted by everyone but me. My parents back in Ohio had mapped it all out. Med school at Case Western, residency in the big city, marry some nice girl from the neighborhood. But secrets have a way of festering, and mine. The quiet truth that I'd fallen for boys since high school, hidden behind forced smiles and late-night scrolls through Grindr that never led anywhere real, had started to choke me. That scalpel drop? It was the crack in the dam. The patient was a construction worker, mid-40s, impaled on rebar from a scaffold collapse up in Harlem. Blood everywhere, the acrid tang of it mixing with antiseptic, and me, the fresh-faced surgical resident, fumbling the tools like a kid with a butter knife. The attending surgeon, Dr. Ramirez, barked orders, but it was Elias who stepped in. He wasn't even on rotation that night. He'd wandered into the OR to grab charts, his white coat slung over one shoulder like he owned the place. Tall, broad-shouldered, with that effortless salt and pepper stubble that made him look like he'd stepped out of a J. Crew catalog crossed with a Hemingway novel. Mid-30s, I guessed, with eyes the color of Lake Erie on a stormy day, gray-blue and piercing. His hand on mine wasn't just a steadying grip. It was an anchor. "In through the nose, out through the mouth," he said softly, ignoring the glares from the nurses. "You've got this, Alex. Focus on the rhythm." And damn if it didn't work. The room blurred back into focus, the beeps steadied, and we closed the guy up without another hitch. By the time we scrubbed out, sweat-soaked and adrenaline-jazzed, Ramirez was clapping me on the back like I just aced the MCAT. But Elias lingered by the sink, peeling off his gloves with deliberate slowness. "You okay?" he asked, his voice low, like we were sharing a conspiracy. I nodded, splashing water on my face to hide the flush creeping up my neck. "Yeah, just first real trauma like that. Thanks for the save." He chuckled, a warm rumble that echoed off the tiles. "No save. You did the work. But breathing? That's the real surgery. Cutting out the noise in your head." He dried his hands, then paused, those eyes locking on mine again. "Coffee? My treat. There's a spot around the corner that doesn't suck." I should have said no. Residents don't fraternize with attendings, especially not the hot ones who make your pulse stutter. But the way he said it, casual yet intent, like he'd been waiting for an excuse, I found myself nodding. "Sure. Black, no sugar." The diner was a hole in the wall on 34th, all vinyl booths and fluorescent buzz, the kind of place where cabbies nursed hangovers and night shift nurses dissected bad dates. We slid into a corner booth, steam rising from our mugs like unspoken questions. "Elias." Dr. Grant to the charts, but he waved off the title, leaned back, his long legs brushing mine under the table. Accidental? Maybe. But the spark was there, electric and undeniable. "So, Ohio boy in the big city," he started, stirring his coffee absently. "What brought you here? Chasing glory? Or running from something?" I laughed, too sharp, too defensive. "A bit of both, I guess. Glory sounds better on paper." Truth was, New York was my escape hatch. From the suffocating Sundays at my parents' church, from the whispers about why I never brought a girl home, from the gnawing fear that I'd die without ever saying it out loud. But I couldn't drop that bomb on a stranger, no matter how his gaze made me feel seen. We talked for hours, or what felt like it, medicine, mostly, the grind of it, the miracles and the heartbreaks. He was from Boston originally, a transplant like me, with a fellowship in cardiology under his belt and a reputation for being the guy who could talk a patient off the ledge with nothing but calm words and a steady hand. Divorced, he mentioned offhand. No kids. The job ate my marriage alive. I nodded, filing it away, wondering if that ache in his voice mirrored my own hidden fractures. By the time we stepped out into the pre-dawn chill, the city waking up around us, honks from early delivery trucks, the distant wail of sirens, something had shifted. "Hey," he said, stopping under a street lamp that cast his face in soft gold. "That breathing thing? It's not just for or panics. Try it sometime when the world's too loud." His hand grazed my arm, lingering a beat too long, and I swear my heart forgot how to beat. I didn't sleep that morning, curled up in my shoebox apartment in Hell's Kitchen. The sheets tangled around me. I replayed it all. The touch, the laugh lines crinkling his eyes, the way "breathe deep" felt like permission to finally exhale. Was it flirtation? Projection? God, I hoped it was real, because for the first time in years, the loneliness didn't feel like a life sentence. The next shift blurred into a routine of stolen glances in the halls, his voice paging me for consults that could have been emails. Elias had a way of turning mundane rounds into something alive, cracking jokes about arrogant pharma reps, sharing stories of his med school pranks in a Boston blizzard. I soaked it up, greedy for the warmth, but kept my walls up. Coming out wasn't a checkbox for me. It was a grenade with the pin half pulled. 2 weeks later, it detonated. We were in the call room after a brutal double shift, the fluorescent hum the only sound as we collapsed onto the worn couch. My head lolled back, exhaustion pulling at me like gravity. "You look like hell," he said. But there was no bite, just that quiet concern. "Feel like it too." I rubbed my eyes, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. "Ever feel like you're faking it? Like everyone's got their script, and yours got lost in the mail?" He shifted closer, his knee pressing against mine, deliberate this time. "Every damn day, especially when it comes to the heart stuff. Not the four-chambered organ, the messy one." His voice dropped, and when I turned, his face was inches away, those gray-blue eyes searching mine. "Alex, I've been wanting to say, that night in the OR, it wasn't just about the scalpel." My breath hitched, the air thickened, charged like the moment before thunder. I could pull back, laugh it off as fatigue, or I could lean in. "Elias," I whispered, my hand finding his jaw, rough with stubble. "Me too." Our lips met soft at first, tentative like testing if the world would crack open. Then deeper, hungry, his fingers threading through my hair as if he'd been memorizing the map of me. It wasn't fireworks. It was a hearth fire. Steady, consuming, the kind that warms you from the inside out. When we broke apart, foreheads pressed together, he murmured against my skin, "Breathe deep with me?" I did, and in that breath, the city outside faded, leaving just us. Two men stealing a sliver of truth in a world that still pretended it didn't exist. But New York doesn't let you hide for long. Word travels fast in hospitals, whispers in the break room turning to sidelong stares. My buddy Jake, a fellow resident with a poker face like a bad bluff, cornered me in the locker room one afternoon. "Dude, you and Grant? Ramirez is pissed. Says it's a liability." I brushed it off, but the seed of doubt took root. Elias, though, he was all in. Dinners at hole-in-the-wall Italian joints in Little Italy. Walks along the High Line where the city lights twinkled like conspirators. He told me about his ex-wife, how the marriage was a cover for his own buried truths, how coming out post-divorce had cost him friends but gained him peace. "You're braver than you know, Alex," he'd say, his thumb tracing circles on my palm under the table. "Just by being here." I wanted to believe him. God, I did. But bravery's a fragile thing when your phone buzzes with a text from Mom. "When are you bringing someone home for Thanksgiving? We miss you." Or when a patient glances at our linked hands in the hall and his smile tightens just a fraction. Elias saw it all, pulled me closer. "We're building something real," he'd whisper in the dark of my apartment, his body a solid line against mine. Chaste kisses, tangled limbs, the romance of simply holding on. Winter crept in, blanketing the city in that gritty slush that turns sidewalks into minefields. Our first real date, not a stolen coffee but intentional, was at the Rockefeller Center tree lighting. Bundled in scarves and coats, we watched the crowd swell, families and couples pressed shoulder to shoulder under the massive Norway spruce. His arm around my waist felt like defiance, like claiming space in a world that still eyed us sideways. "Remember that first breath?" he asked as the lights blazed to life, 1,000 colors exploding against the night. "This is what it leads to." I leaned into him, the chill forgotten. "Yeah, all of it." But shadows lengthen with the days. Elias started pulling late nights. Not unusual for a cardiologist. But the calls went unanswered more often. His laughs on the phone tinny and distant. "Consult in Queens." He'd text and I'd nod, trusting because what else could I do? Love, I was learning, was a gamble with loaded dice. It was mid-December, the air sharp with pine from holiday vendors, when the first crack showed. We'd planned a quiet night in, takeout from that Thai place on 9th, a bottle of Cabernet, the kind of evening where we could pretend the world was just our corner of it. I got to his brownstone in the West Village early, key he'd given me jangling like a promise. The door creaked open to silence. No savory smells. No jazz crooning from the speakers. Upstairs, the bedroom door ajar. And there Elias, shirtless, laughing into his phone. The voice on the other end muffled but male, intimate. "Miss you too, man. Yeah, tonight if I can swing it." He hung up, spotting me in the doorway, his face shifting from ease to guilt in a heartbeat. "Alex, you're early." "Who was that?" The words came out steady, but inside, the scalpel was slipping again. "Just a friend. Old med school buddy in from Boston." He stepped closer, hands out like I was a spooked patient. "Hey," breathe deep. "It's nothing." But it wasn't nothing. The lie hung there acrid as blood in the ore. I grabbed my coat, the door slamming behind me like a verdict. Outside, the village streets glittered with fairy lights, couples strolling arm in arm, oblivious. My phone buzzed him, of course. "Wait, please, talk to me." I didn't. Not that night. Instead, I walked, blocks blurring into miles. The Hudson's dark waters a mirror for the storm in my chest. Betrayal? Maybe too strong. But the fear, the old bone-deep fear that I'd misread it all, that I was just the latest in a line of convenient distractions, clawed its way back. Days turned to a week of radio silence, shifts overlapping in awkward dances around charts and coffee machines. He tried, cornering me in the stairwell once, eyes red-rimmed. "Alex, it was a mistake. That call? It was my ex, Mark. We talk sometimes, platonically, but seeing your face, I get it. I fucked up by not being straight with you." Straight. The word tasted bitter. Funny choice. He winced. "I mean honest. I'm in this, Alex, all the way, but I can't lose you over a ghost." I wanted to believe him, to let those eyes pull me back. But trust, once nicked, bleeds slow. We patched it, tentatively. Dinners where conversation skirted the edges, touches that lingered but didn't ignite. New Year's Eve loomed, a deadline of sorts, the city pulsing with promise and peril. The ball drop found us on his rooftop, champagne flutes in hand, the Empire State building a beacon across the skyline. Fireworks cracked overhead, multicolored blooms against the black, and he pulled me close. "This year," he said, breath warm on my neck, "we do it right. No more hiding." I kissed him then, fierce and forgiving, the crowd's roar drowning our quiet vows. For a moment it felt possible. A life where breaths synced, where the world bent just enough for us. But January brought blizzards, and with them the real storm. The first snow hit like a freight train, burying Manhattan under a foot of white that turned the streets into labyrinths of shoveled paths and stalled taxis. I trudged to the hospital through it, collar up against the wind, my mind a whirl of resolutions half-kept. Elias and I were trying. God, were we trying? Mornings started with texts. Coffee run. Evenings ended with him at my door, snow-dusted and smiling, bearing takeout and that steady gaze that made the chaos fade. But the call lingered like a bruise, tender when pressed. Work didn't help. The ER was a war zone of flu cases and slip and falls. Residents pushed to breaking. One night, post a 12-hour shift pulling shrapnel from a kid's leg. Urban sledding gone wrong. I collapsed into the on-call room, only to find Elias there, charting by lamplight. He looked up, setting aside his pen. Rough one. Understatement. I dropped onto the bunk beside him, head in hands. Ever wonder if we're just glorified janitors? Cleaning up messes we can't prevent. He slid an arm around my shoulders, pulling me in. Every day. But then there's the wins. The breaths that steady. The hearts that keep beating. His lips brushed my temple, soft as snowfall. Like yours. We stayed like that, tangled in the dim, until a page shattered the quiet. His not mine cardiac arrest in the ICU. He bolted, but not before squeezing my hand. Breathe deep. For me. I did, watching him go, that white coat a blur down the hall. Pride swelled, mixed with something sharper. Envy? Fear? He was the rock. I was still learning the shape of mine. The thaw came mid-month, streets slick with melt, and with it, an invitation that felt like a test. Elias's department holiday party. Black tie, rooftop at the hospital's swanky adjunct hotel in Midtown. Come as my +1. He'd said over dim sum in Chinatown. Chopsticks pausing mid-air. No hiding. Show them we're real. My stomach nodded. Parties meant eyes, judgments, the casual bigotry masked as jokes. Back home, it had been sermons on lifestyle choices. Here, it was subtler, raised brows, invitations that never quite included both of us. But his hope was infectious, those gray-blue eyes alight. Okay, I said, let's crash it. The night was a fever dream of crystal glasses and jazz quartet strains, the rooftops strung with lights that danced like fireflies against the skyline. Elias in a tailored tux, looking like he'd invented charm. His hand firm at the small of my back as we navigated clusters of white-coated elites. Introductions flowed. Alex Harlan, my partner, he'd say, the word landing like a mic drop each time. Smiles followed, some genuine, others tight, but no outright frost. A senior attending even clapped me on the shoulder. Heard about that or save? Grant here's got good instincts. We stole moments by the railing, city lights sprawling below like a promise. See, he murmured, nuzzling my ear. Not so bad. Better than bad? I replied, turning to kiss him. Public, unapologetic, the thrill of it buzzing through me like champagne. But midway through, as I fetched refills at the bar, a shadow fell. Dr. Lydia Voss, Elias's old fellowship mentor, sleek in emerald silk, her smile all teeth. So, you're the one who's got our golden boy off-kilter. Her tone was light, but her eyes dissected. Word of advice, Alex. Cardiology's a jealous mistress. Don't let it chew you up. I laughed it off, but later, overhearing her with Elias by the dessert table. Mark called again. Says he's in town, wants to catch up. You sure about this new arrangement? The bruise throbbed anew. Mark, the ex, the platonic ghost with a knack for haunting. Elias brushed it aside when I pressed him later, in the cab home, snow flurrying against the windows. Lydia's just protective. Mark's history, water under the bridge. But his phone buzzed then, screen lighting up with a name I didn't know. Coffee tomorrow? M. History, huh? The words slipped out, sharp as ice. He sighed, rubbing his temple. It's nothing. Old habit. I'll tell him no. But habits die hard, especially the ones that whisper doubts. The next days were a tightrope, affection laced with questions, his reassurances feeling thinner each time. I threw myself into work, volunteering for extra shifts, anything to drown the what-ifs. Jake noticed, pulling me aside in the cafeteria over greasy eggs. You look like shit, man. Grant drama? Something like. I poked at my food, appetite gone. Ever feel like you're auditioning for your own life? He shrugged, ever the pragmatist. All the time. But if it's real, you don't audition, you show up. Wise words from a guy whose longest relationship was with his Xbox. Valentine's Day ambushed us, All hearts and hype. Elias planned a surprise. Dinner at 1 if by land, 2 if by sea. Candlelit colonial romance in the village, violins weaving through hushed conversations. He was there early, rose in his lapel, eyes crinkling as I walked in. You clean up nice, Ohio. So do you, Boston. We laughed, the tension easing over foie gras and confessions. His, about growing up in a Catholic family where different meant damnation. Mine, about the high school crush on my track coach that ended in a slammed locker and a vow of silence. Breathe deep, he toasted, clinking glasses. To us, unscripted. The night blurred into magic. Dessert in bed, his fingers tracing stories on my skin, whispers of futures. Maybe a place upstate, weekends hiking the Catskills, a life beyond beeps and charts. For the first time, the loneliness receded fully, leaving space for something vast, vulnerable. Spring teased early that year, crocuses pushing through park mulch, the city shedding its gray for green. We fell into a rhythm, mornings jogging Central Park, his steady pace matching mine. Evenings cooking in his kitchen, arguing over spices like an old married couple. The mark text stopped, or so he said, and I chose belief because love's too precious to ration on suspicion. But rot festers unseen. It started with a late-night page. Elias, missing from rounds. I covered for him, heart twisting, until he appeared disheveled, mumbling about a family thing. Then the whispers ramped up, nurses gossiping about Grant's side piece, a vague reference to some bar hookup spotted by a colleague. I confronted him in the parking garage. Rain sheeting down, our umbrellas forgotten. Is it true? My voice cracked, the downpour no match for the storm inside. Mark? Or someone else? His face crumpled, rain mingling with what might have been tears. Alex, I swear, it's not what you think. Mark showed up unannounced, drunk, begging for closure. I told him to go. But yeah, I didn't tell you right away. I was scared you'd bolt. Scared? Or ashamed? The accusation hung heavy. I'm tired of being the secret you breathe around. He reached for me, but I stepped back. You're not. You're everything. But the words rang hollow, eroded by half-truths. We didn't break then, not fully. A fragile truce held through April's bloom, cherry blossoms dusting the paths like confetti. Therapy, he suggested, couple sessions with a discreet shrink in Chelsea. We went, unpacking layers. His fear of abandonment from the divorce, my terror of erasure from my roots. Communication, the doc droned, is the scalpel that heals. It helped marginally. May brought warmer winds, and with them, a milestone. Meeting his sister, flown in from Philly for a weekend. Sarah was a whirlwind. Short-cropped hair, tattooed arms, a lesbian firebrand who disowned their parents years back. Over brunch at Sarabeth's, mimosas fizzing, she grilled me. You make him happy? Because he deserves that, after all the bullshit. I try, I said, meeting her gaze. Elias squeezed my knee under the table, a silent yes. Good. Hurt him, and I'll bury you in the Schuylkill. She winked, then pulled us into a group hug that smelled of Chanel and acceptance. For Elias, it was cathartic. Tears in his eyes as she boarded the train back. Family, he said that night, curled against me on the couch. Real family. I held him tighter, the word wrapping around us like a shield. But shields crack under siege. June sweltered, the city a steam bath of asphalt and ambition. My boards loomed, a gauntlet of study marathons that left me hollow-eyed and snappish. Elias picked up the slack. Groceries on my stoop, notes tucked into my locker. Breathe, you've got this. But the late nights stretched, his consults piling up. One evening, post a grueling sim lab, I swung by his place unannounced, key turning with a click that felt like betrayal. The apartment was dim, jazz low, and there, on the couch, Elias and a man I didn't know, heads bent close over wine glasses. Laughter, easy, intimate. The stranger, lean, dark-haired, early 30s, looked up first, surprise flickering. Oh, didn't realize company. Elias bolted upright, color draining. Alex, this is Theo, colleague from the conference last month. We were just debriefing. Debriefing. At 10 p.m. on a Thursday, wine instead of water. Theo stood, awkward, murmuring goodbyes and vanishing into the night. The door clicked shut, leaving silence thicker than the humidity. Debriefing? I echoed, arms crossed like armor. With vibes like that? It's not. He raked a hand through his hair, pacing. Theo's married, straight. We bonded over bad divorce stories. That's it. Everyone's just a friend lately. My voice rose, cracking the dam. Mark, Theo, who's next? Am I the idiot here, Elias? The one who thought this was exclusive. He stopped, eyes flashing hurt. Exclusive? Yes. But trust goes both ways, Alex. You snoop. Assume the worst. Snoop. I laughed. Bitter. I live here half the time. Your keys in my pocket like a noose. The fight spiraled. Words like scalpels. His accusations of paranoia. Mine of evasion. Breathe deep. He snapped at one point, mocking. Fix your panic with air. That did it. Screw your breaths. I hurled back. And screw you for making me doubt everything. I stormed out, the stairwell echoing my footsteps. Rain starting again as if the sky agreed. The next weeks were purgatory. Shifts in parallel universes, him in cardio, me in general, we avoided eyes, hearts. Jake dragged me to a bar in the East Village. Shots of Jameson burning paths to numbness. Dump the baggage, he advised, slurring. Life's too short for maybes. But dumping felt like amputation. Late nights, I'd scroll his Instagram. Posts of sunsets over the reservoir. Captions about finding rhythm. Wondering if they were for me. Pride Month parades thrummed through the streets. Rainbows waving like taunts. Couples hand in hand while I nursed a solo beer on my fire escape. July 4th exploded in irony. Fireworks over the East River. Bursts of red and gold that should have been romantic. Elias texted, "Can we talk? Please." Against better judgment, I met him at our spot, the High Line's elevated tracks quiet under the booms. He looked wrecked, stubble overgrown, eyes shadowed. "I miss you," he started, no preamble. "Every breath feels shallow without you." Tears pricked, but I held firm. "Miss me? Or miss the ease? Because it's hard. And you're running from hard." He nodded, swallowing. "Guilty. After the divorce, I swore off messy. Then you make me want messy." But I froze. Theo was nothing, a vent session. Mark too. But hiding it? That's on me. Why hide? The question hung, raw. Fear. Simple, shattering. Of losing you. Of it all crumbling like before. We sat there, explosions painting the sky, hands finding each other tentative. "No more ghosts," I said finally. "Full transparency. Or we're done." "Done's not an option." He kissed my knuckles, vow-like. "Transparency. Starting now." We rebuilt, brick by cautious brick. Date nights with check-ins. His phone open on the counter like an olive branch. August baked the city, but our corner cooled, deepening into something resilient. Talks turned to dreams. Me finishing residency, him eyeing a private practice upstate. A house with a porch. He'd muse, sketching plans on napkins. You, me, and a dog that doesn't mind scrubs. Laughter came easier, trust a slow bloom. Fall crept back, leaves turning, and with it my boards aced, thank God. The result's a high that rivaled any kiss. Elias celebrated with a weekend in the Berkshires. A cabin tucked in woods ablaze with color. No phones, just us. Hikes where breaths synced to footsteps. Nights by the fire trading stories of what-ifs turned real. "You're my life changer," he said one evening, stars wheeling overhead, his head on my chest. "That scalpel drop? Best mistake ever." I smiled into the dark, fingers in his hair. Breathe deep. Together. But fate's a cardiologist with a twisted sense of humor. Hearts give out when you least expect. October circled back. A year since that night. The city dressing in its autumn finery. We'd settled into a groove. My apartment sublet, Half my clothes migrated to his brownstone. The key now a talisman, not a noose. Work thrived. I snagged a spot in Elias's department for my elective rotation. Trading trauma for hearts, his mentorship a quiet thrill in the halls. Proud of you, he'd murmur during rounds, his pride a bomb. Thanksgiving loomed, the first real test. Come home with me, I said over breakfast, pancakes sticky between us. Ohio, meet the folks. His fork paused. You sure? Last time you mentioned them, it was like prepping for surgery. I nodded, stealing. Sure as I can be. They know about you in emails vague. Time to make it real. He squeezed my hand. Then I'm in. Scalpel and all. The drive was a blur of interstates and diners. Ohio's flatlands a stark contrast to Manhattan's pulse. Mom and Dad's rancher in Cleveland suburbs gleamed with harvest wreaths. The air thick with turkey and unspoken tensions. Hugs at the door. Stiff for Elias, effusive for me. Then the meal. Mashed potatoes passed in silence broken by Dad's weather talk. So, Elias, Mom ventured finally, her smile tentative over pie. Alex says you're a heart doctor. Fitting, with how he's always worn his on his sleeve. Elias chuckled, charm dialed up. Keeps me honest. And Alex? He's got the steadiest one I know. Eyes met around the table, mine pleading, there's assessing. Dad cleared his throat. We, appreciate you coming. Family's important. It wasn't a full embrace, but it was a foothold, no sermons, no frost. As we loaded the car later, Mom pressed a Tupperware into Elias's hands. Take care of him. He's our only one. In the rear view, waving goodbye, I exhaled. That wasn't half bad. He grinned, hand on my thigh. Breathe deep, partner. We survived. Christmas followed, his turn. Philly with Sarah, who welcomed me like a co-conspirator, regaling with tales of Elias's awkward teen years. Always the fixer, she said over eggnog, winking. Now he's got you to fix him back. New Year dawned brighter. Resolutions whispered over rooftop toasts. More travels, less overtime. Life felt stitched whole, the scars faint. But January's chill brought fever, not the metaphorical kind. Elias spiked one after a flu outbreak at the hospital, shrugging it off as post-holiday crud. I dosed him with tea and lectures, but by week's end, he was in bed, skin hot, cough rattling like loose gravel. Probably pneumonia, I diagnosed, resident instincts kicking in. Antibiotics. Rest. He waved me off, pale but stubborn. Can't. Big trial starting, new stent prototype. Elias. I sat on the bed's edge, hand to his forehead. You're burning up. Delegate. A week later, he was back at work, but the cough lingered. A shadow. February's Valentine's redux. Dinner at our spot. Found him distracted, picking at his pasta. Just tired, he insisted when I pressed. Love you, though. More than tiramisu. I let it slide, chalking it to burnout. But March whispered warnings. Weight loss I attributed to stress. Bruises from bumping into furniture. One night, post-shift, I found him in the bathroom, staring at a fading mark on his arm. Clumsy, he joked, but his eyes dodged. Show me. I pulled up his sleeve. More bruises, purple blooms like storm clouds. Heart slammed. Elias, this isn't right. It's nothing, low platelets, maybe. I'll get checked. He did reluctantly. A quick blood draw, dismissed as viral aftermath. But the cough deepened. Breaths labored even on good days. April showers masked his wheezes, but I wasn't fooled. Full workup. I demanded one rainy morning, blocking the door. Or I page oncology myself. Fine, Dr. Bossy. He kissed my forehead, but the fear in his eyes mirrored mine. The results came on a Tuesday, the kind of gray-skied day that presses down. We sat in his office, door shut, the folder between us like a verdict. Hodgkin's lymphoma, the oncologist said via speaker. Dr. Patel, a no-nonsense veteran. Stage 2 caught early. Treatable chemo, radiation. Good prognosis. Elias nodded, face blank. How soon? Start next week. We'll map it out. The door clicked shut, leaving silence. I reached for him, but he pulled away, standing to pace. Cancer. Of all the plot twists. Elias. Tears blurred my vision. We'll fight it. Together. He stopped, back to me, shoulders rigid. What if I don't want together? What if this breaks us? The words landed like a gut punch. Breaks us? After everything. He turned, eyes wet. I'm scared, Alex. Of being the sick one, the burden. Of you watching me fade. I crossed to him, gripping his arms, bruised, but his. Fade? You're not fading. You're fighting. And I'm right here. Scalpel, breaths, all of it. We clung then, sobs mingling, the world narrowing to that office. Outside, spring bloomed indifferent, but inside, resolve hardened. Chemo started, infusions in sterile bays, Elias hooked to IVs, me at his side with bad hospital coffee and worse jokes. Bald looks good on you? I quipped when the hair fell, gathering strands like fallen leaves. He laughed, weak but real. Flatterer. Your turn to breathe deep for me. Nausea hit hard. Nights of him retching while I held the basin, whispering nonsense about Berkshire's cabins and porch dogs. Sarah flew in, bunking on our couch, her fire a bulwark. My parents even called. Awkward. But there. We're praying, Mom said. And for once, it felt like bridge building, not barrier. May's treatments blurred, good days of park walks, bad ones of bedbound haze. Elias rallied, stubborn as ever, charting his own progress like a patient zero. Scans look promising, he'd report, squeezing my hand during radiation waits. Tumor shrinking. We're winning. Pride that year was bittersweet. Parade floats honking past, rainbows clashing with his bandana-wrapped head. We watched from a cafe, his head on my shoulder. Grateful, he murmured. For this. For you. Summer simmered, heat waves testing us. Weight crept back, cough eased. And by July, remission whispered. Confirmed in August, scans clean as fresh linen. Celebrations erupted. Rooftop barbecue with Jake and Sarah. Beers clinking to second chances. Elias, hair a fuzzy halo, pulled me aside as dusk fell. You saved me, Alex. Not the drugs. The you. We made love that night, slow, reverent, bodies mapping survival. No rush, just gratitude, breaths sinking in the dark. Fall returned, leaves crunching underfoot. A year cycled full. But peace is fleeting, old ghosts stir. October's chill brought a conference in Boston, Elias presenting his stent data. A triumph. Come, he urged. Celebrate with me. I couldn't. Boards follow up, a shift swap gone wrong. Next time, I promised, kissing him at the gate. Knocking dej. He did. Texts buzzing. Standing oh. Miss you. Then silence, odd, but I chalked it to panels. Until the call, 2 a.m., airport payphone static. Alex? Don't freak. But, relapse. PET scan lit up. They want me admitted. The world tilted. What? How? Doesn't matter. Just, come. I was on the next red eye, landing to him in a gown for fresh, that damn folder open again. Stage 3 now, aggressive. It hid, he explained, voice steady despite the tremor. Chemo masked it. Rage boiled at the universe, the unfairness. We beat it once. We'll. Alex. His hand stopped mine, eyes grave. Prognosis. Is not great. Months, maybe. I need you to promise, live. Don't stop for me. Tears fell hot. Stop? You're my life. The fight reignited, fiercer, experimental trials, second opinions, a blur of white coats and waiting rooms. Boston became our battleground. My residency paused, Jake covering with gruff, go get your guy. Elias weakened slow, breaths shallower, but his spirit flared. Lectures from his bed, jokes that cracked us open. November stripped trees bare, mirroring him, hair gone again, frame gaunt. Home to New York for Thanksgiving, against orders, Mom's table a haven. Dad prayed openly this time, hand on Elias's. Fight smart, son. We did, until December's solstice, when the scans screamed defeat. Metastatic, no more trials. Hospice talks loomed, a word like final suture. Christmas Eve, snow blanketing the village. We sat by the window, tree lights twinkling. "Remember the ore?" he rasped, bundled in blankets. "That breath. Every day." I held him, fragile but fierce. "It led here. To you. Best change ever." New Year's came quiet, ball drop on TV, his head in my lap. Fireworks boomed distant, and he whispered, "Breathe deep for both of us now." I did, through January's vigil, nights of morphine dreams, days of stories retold. Sarah came, my parents too, a circle of us around his bed. February's end. Under a full moon, he slipped, peaceful, hand in mine, last words of faint love. Always. The funeral was gray-skied, March rain mingling with tears. Eulogies from colleagues, Sarah's fierce toast. "He loved big. Let that be the lesson." I spoke last, voice steady. "Elias taught me to breathe, and in his light, I'll keep going for us." Spring bloomed defiant, crocuses pushing through frost-kissed earth. The brownstone echoed empty, but I filled it, volunteering at the hospital's LGBT clinic, mentoring residents with his calm. A porch dog arrived, a scruffy mutt named Grant, tail wagging like permission. One October dawn, a year on, I stood on the high line, leaves gold again. Breathe deep, in the memory out the grief. He changed me irrevocably, and in that change, life bloomed anew. Not replacement, but continuation. Human, messy, full of light. For Elias, always, grief isn't a straight line. It's a goddamn maze with dead ends and echoes that pounce when you least expect. The months after Elias blurred into a haze of firsts. First shift without his coffee on my tray. First dawn without his arm across me. First spring without his hand in mine tugging me toward bloom. New York kept spinning, indifferent. Taxis honking, vendors hawking pretzels. The skyline a constant sentinel. But inside, I was adrift, charting breaths that felt borrowed. Work became anchor and albatross. Back in residency, the halls of Mount Sinai loomed larger, every corner a ghost. His office reassigned, but the scent of his cologne lingered in my mind. Jake was a rock, dragging me to Knicks games where the crowd's roar drowned doubts. "He'd want you punching the clock, not the bag," he'd say over beers, his way of therapy. Sarah checked in weekly, her calls a lifeline of blunt love. "Sell the place if you need to, or keep it. Haunt it like he would." Philly visits turned ritual, her couch, takeout Thai, marathons of old Hitchcock films Elias adored. "He always said you were the Hitchcock lead, brooding, unbreakable." Unbreakable? Nights said otherwise. Waking sweat-soaked from dreams of or lights and slipping scalpels, his voice fading. "Breathe deep." I'd stumble to the window, city lights mocking my solitude, and wonder if love's the cruelest diagnosis. Terminal hope. Mom and Dad's overtures deepened, tentative bridges over old chasms. A care package arrived, Ohio Buckeyes, a card in Dad's block print. "Proud of your fight, son." Like Elias. Easter brought me home, the rancher warmer now, questions gentler. "Tell us about him." Mom urged over ham, and I did, stories spilling like uncorked wine. The diner coffee, rooftop kisses, breaths shared. Tears came, theirs and mine, but so did hugs. Real rib-cracking. "We should have seen sooner," Dad admitted, voice gruff. "But love's love. Yours counts." Coming out fully felt like shedding skin, raw but freeing. No fanfare, just truth told over pie. They nodded, absorbing, and in that quiet acceptance, a piece of me healed. Summer scorched in, heat waves warping the air. I threw myself into the clinic, pro bono hours with queer youth, kids with eyes like mine at 17, scared scripts clutched tight. "It's okay to rewrite," I'd tell them, echoing Elias. One, a lanky teen named Riley with a mohawk and a stutter, latched on. "How'd you know it was worth the mess?" he'd ask during check-ins. "Worth's in the breathing," I'd reply. "In and out, through the noise." August brought a pilgrimage, Berkshire's cabin, rented on a whim. Alone, I hiked trails we'd planned, leaves whispering secrets. At the overlook, reservoir glinting below, I scattered ashes I'd held too long. His, mixed with soil from the high line. Porch dogs waiting, I said to the wind. And me, living. Fall's palette returned, amber and crimson. A year marking his absence. The brownstones stayed mine, ghosts tamed to guardians. His jazz records spinning on lazy Sundays. A shelf of his books dog-eared. Grant the mutt claimed the couch. His snores a bass line to my solitude. But solitude shifted come November, a conference in Boston, cardiology like his. I presented a case study on anxiety in ORs, breathing through the blade, his techniques woven in. Standing at the podium, spotlight warm, I felt him, steady hand on mine. Q&A flowed, applause thrummed, and afterward, a drink invite from a panelist. Dr. Theo Reyes, the colleague from that rainy night. Awkward at first, old suspicions flaring, but time had sanded edges. Over scotch in a Beacon Hill pub, gas lamps flickering, he opened up. Elias saved my ass on that trial. And you, he talked about you nonstop. The one who makes me breathe right. Laughter cracked the ice, stories shared. Theo's coming out post-kids. The bar hookups, a myth born of bad lighting. He was all in, Theo said, raising his glass. To ghosts who guide. Ghosts guiding led to more networking turned friendship, a loose crew of docs plotting a support group for queer med pros. Elias's legacy. I pitched and they bought in. First meeting in a Chelsea coffee shop come December, snow dusting sidewalks. Holidays hit softer that year. Ohio again, Elias's empty chair a silent guest. Mom set a place anyway, plate piled high. He'd hate us skimping, she quipped, and we toasted, tears turning to tales. Dad even cracked a joke. Heart doc. Huh? Must have been why he stole ours. New Year's found me on the rooftop, champagne solo, ball dropping distant on TV. Fireworks bloomed, and I whispered vows. Not to loss, but to forward. More clinic hours. A book maybe, on breaths and breaks. Winter thawed slow, February's chill clinging. Valentine's I volunteered clinic open house for couples, rainbows on flyers. Riley showed with a boyfriend, shy grins mirroring my old nerves. Thanks for the rewrite, he said, hugging awkward. Pride Month roared in June, streets alive with bass and banners. I marched, Grant's leash in one hand, Sarah's in the other. Float hopping, cheers echoing. A news crew snagged me. What's your story? Mike thrust, heart full. Love, I said simple. The kind that teaches you to breathe, and keeps you going when it doesn't. Summer hummed on, heat a familiar foe. A date surfaced, casual, via the group app. A pediatrician named Nate with a lopsided smile and a laugh like summer thunder. Coffee turned walks, walks to dinners, no rush, just ease. Elias? He asked once, gentle. Tell me about him. I did, over gelato in Washington Square, pigeons strutting. He was my scalpel cut through the bullshit. But you're the steady now. Fall circled, leaves a yearly requiem. October marked 2 years since the OR. The brownstone hosting a vigil friends, clinic kids, toasts to breaths deep. Grant curled at my feet, Nate's hand warm in mine. One dawn, high line again, city waking gold. I breathed in memory, out forward. Elias's change lingered, a humanism etched deep. Love doesn't end. It echoes, reshapes, reminds us we're alive in the mess. And in that aliveness, I stepped on. Not unbroken, but whole. 2 years folded into 3, time's sleight of hand turning sharp edges soft. The brownstone evolved, Elias's jazz mingled with Nate's podcasts on urban foraging, bookshelves groaning under dual worlds. Grant ruled the roost, a gray-muzzled emperor claiming laps impartially. My practice bloomed. Residency wrapped, a junior attending spot in cardio. The clinic my side heart, hours mentoring, breaths taught to wide-eyed interns. Nate fit seamless, a quiet counterpoint. Evenings foraging in Prospect Park, baskets brimming ramps and morels. Weekends upstate, porches finally claimed. Not the dreamed cabin, but a rented A-frame where we plotted futures over campfires. Kids? He'd muse, poking embers. Or just more dogs? Both. I'd laugh, his head on my shoulder. And a library for Elias's ghosts. Speaking his name came easy now, not invocation but integration. Nate understood. Never jealous. Joining vigils where we'd raise glasses to the original breather. Sarah dubbed him the sequel, teasing over Philly brunches. Treat him right, or I sick the school kill on you. Family wove tighter. Ohio Thanksgiving's a tradition. Mom's pies joined by Nate's pecan innovation. Dad, softening yearly, cornered me one November. Your mom's been reading PFLAG stuff. Says we missed the script, but we can ad-lib now. Hugs followed, gruff but gold. Winters warmed metaphorically. Boston conferences became ours. Theo's crew a chosen tribe. The support group thrived. Monthly meets in Midtown lofts. Stories swapped like scalpels. Coming out cuts, partnership sutures. I keynote once. Breathing through loss. Slides over nights and rooftop toasts. Applause thundered. A young doc afterward. You make the mess make sense. Spring's renewal mirrored mine. A book deal landed. Deep breaths. A surgeon's guide to loving unscripted. Elias's ethos inked eternal. Launches packed the village bookstore. Nate beaming beside me. Sarah toasting. To scripts rewritten. Summer sweltered celebratory, pride grander. Our float sponsored by the clinic, rainbows on scrubs. Nate and I danced till dawn, sweat slick and alive. His kiss tasting of glitter and gin. This, he panted, is worth every breath. Fall cycle, 4 years post-OR, brought quiet milestones. A ring, simple platinum, slipped on over Labor Day brunch. Nate's proposal casual as our forages. Marry me? Make the porch permanent. Tears blurred yes, planning understated. City Hall, then upstate blowout with tribe and family. The wedding dawned crisp October. Leaves a cathedral canopy. Vows exchanged under the A-frame's eaves. Grant ringbearer in a bowtie farce. Sarah officiated, voice cracking. Elias would say breathe deep, but today, shout it. Rings sealed, kisses sealed deeper, cheers erupting as we cut pie. Mom's recipe, Buckeyes for dessert. Honeymoon in the Catskills, cabins linked by trails, breaths shared in hammocks swaying. Life changer. Nate whispered one dusk, reservoir mirroring sunset. You, echoes, not replacements. Elias's shelf in our new place, brownstone sold, proceeds seeding clinic scholarships, held photos. Us three somehow in memory's frame. Years layered 5, then 7. Kids came via surrogacy. Twins. Eliana and Grant Jr., whirlwinds of questions and cuddles. Papa Nate, tell the breath story. They'd beg bedtime. My tales of scalpel drops and rooftop lights spinning yarns of heroes. Career crested. Full professorship. Book tours coast to coast. The clinic a beacon for queer health equity. Nate's practice flourished. Urban gardens sprouting in community plots. Family swelled. Ohio grandkids visits. Sarah's partner joining the fray. Holidays a cacophony of love. A decade dawned. Gray threading my temples like Elias's old stubble. One October, highline pilgrimage with Nate. Kids scampering ahead. Leaves crunched underfoot. City hum a lullaby. 10 years, he said, arm around me. From that maze to this. I leaned in, breathing deep. In gratitude, out peace. Worth every twist. The world turned humanistic, flaws and all. Rights won, setbacks stung, but breaths persisted. Elias's lesson endured. Love's not absence, but presence in the echo, the rewrite, the relentless forward. And in that we thrived, human, whole, alive.